Okay, guys, example number 4. This is probably the type of problem or the type of exercise that makes it most clear why we give functions names. Okay? And we were talking to Max just a minute ago, and we said, we don't want this to say let y equal x squared and y equal 3x. Okay? These are different functions, so we don't want y to equal these two different things. We want to actually give them different names so we know what we're talking about. If I say, hey guys, function g, that means I'm talking about this. Okay, 3x. If I say function x, I'm talking about, function f, I'm talking about x squared. That allows me to distinguish between the two of them. Okay? Now, these things are called compositions. Okay? It's functions inside of functions. Okay? And I'm going to show you what that means in just a moment. But you're going to deal with compositions much more in advanced algebra. This is just sort of beginning it for us. Okay? Now, if I said that f of x is equal to x squared, yes? And I said, well, you know what? What's f of 3? What would f of 3, what would I do here, Alexander?
You plug in the x with 3.
So I'd plug in 3 wherever x shows up, and I'd get 3 squared, right? Which turns out to be 9. Okay. Well, this first thing says, you know what? We don't want to find f of x. We want to find f of g of x. Okay, now wait a minute. Tell me just a second. Alfredo, what does g of x equal?
3x.
G of x equals 3x. Okay? And this first problem here, this one, says we want to find f of g of x. So I'm going to replace g of x with 3x, because that's what g of x equals. Okay? Now, f of x is equal to x squared. So that means f of g of x equals x squared. But instead of x squared in here, do you see, just like Alexander said, we replace the x here with g of x squared. But what does g of x equal, CC?
3.
3x. So it's 3x squared.
Oh.
And what is 3x squared? F of 3x is equal to 9x squared. Now, Eric, you clearly have a question. Let me stop for a second and see what I can do to help you.
Gx squared.
No?
No, where you wrote that, it used to say x squared, and up there it said let f of x equal x squared. So why don't you put f of x?
Okay, now wait a minute. Wait a minute. They're saying this function is equal to x squared.
Yes.
And this function is equal to 3x. They want us to find f of g of x. So let me ask you something. Instead of x, right? We know that f of x is equal to x squared, right? Isn't that what it says?
Yep.
But instead of x inside those parentheses, what did they put inside the parentheses?
G of x.
So f of g of x needs to be g of x squared. I replace the x with g of x, right? But Max, what's g of x equal? It equals 3x. So I'm just going to replace g of x with 3x. Right? Squared. So f of 3x is equal to 9x squared. No, I need to multiply 3x by 3x. I multiply the numbers. 3 times 3 gives me 9, and x times x gives me x squared. Right? Now I'm going to run out of time on this one for sure, Edward. But let me make sure. Do you see what we did here? I replaced Ben. Then we're going to spend some time with you, Ben. What did I do? You don't know what I did? Have you been in the room? Have you seen me writing stuff? Well, what did I write?
Weird stuff.
Okay, Ben, we're going to start the next